Martin reached Moscow just before Christmas, when it was very hard to find a job. He had been jobless for 3 weeks. He tried everything to find a job, but nothing worked. He stayed with friends and relatives from his village, but he felt ashamed of depending on them. He was young and strong, and just wanted to work, instead of relying on others. Martin had lived in Moscow since childhood. He started work as a bottle washer in a brewery, then became a house servant, and later worked for a merchant. But he had to return to his village for military duty. But in the end, he was not chosen, and life in the countryside felt dull to him. He preferred struggling in Moscow rather than staying in the village. Each day without work made him more restless. He asked everyone he knew for help, even stopping strangers on the street to ask about work. But no one could help him. Eventually, he could no longer bear being a burden on his friends. Some avoided him, while others faced trouble with their landlords for letting him stay. He even went entire days without food. A friend's help. One day, Martin went to visit Nikolai Yegorov, a coachman who worked for a wealthy merchant named Sheriff. Nikolai had served Sheriff for many years and was trusted by him. This trust came mostly because Nikolai was skilled at reporting on other servants, making himself look loyal. When Martin arrived, Nikolai welcomed him, gave him tea and food, and asked him about his situation. "I've been without work for weeks," Martin said sadly. "Did you ask your old employer to take you back?" Nikolai asked. "I did, but my position was already filled," Martin replied. "That's because you young men don't know how to keep a good name with your employers," Nikolai said smugly. "If you had served well, your master would have taken you back and fired the man who replaced you." Martin didn't argue. He knew Nikolai was boasting, so he simply agreed. Nikolai enjoyed the praise and then said, "If you want, I can speak to my master about hiring you as a servant here." "Does he need a worker?" Martin asked eagerly. "There is one, but he's old and weak. He can barely keep the place clean, and the police might start complaining about it." "Oh, please, Nikolai Yegorov," Martin begged. "If you help me, I'll be forever grateful. I can't stand being without work anymore." "Fine, come back tomorrow. In the meantime, take this little money, it might help you." Martin thanked Nikolai, feeling a little hope for the first time in weeks. Convincing the master. That evening, Nikolai harnessed the horses and drove Sheriff into town. When they returned, Nikolai saw that his master was in a good mood, so he decided it was a good time to bring up Martin's case. "Sheriff," he said, "I have a favor to ask." "What is it?" Sheriff asked. "There's a young man from my village who is looking for a work. He's a good, hard-working boy. Would you take him?" "What would I need him for?" "As a general servant," Nikolai suggested. "Viktor Petrov isn't managing well anymore." "But he's been with me for 15 years, Sheriff said hesitantly. "It wouldn't be right to dismiss him without reason." "Why not?" Nikolai insisted. He got paid for his work. He's old now, and should retire. His wife earns a little too. They'll manage. But he has no savings, Sheriff argued. He can go to the almshouse, Nikolai replied coldly. Besides, he's careless with his work. He never clears the snow properly, and sneaks away when it's his turn to stand watch. One day the police will come, and you'll be responsible. Sheriff thought about it and finally said, All right, bring your friend. I'll see what I can do. Thank you, sir, Nikolai said with satisfaction. You won't regret it. The boy will serve you well. A change of heart. The next evening, Martin returned eagerly. Well? He asked. Did you speak to him? Yes, Nikolai said proudly. But first, have some tea, then we'll go to see him. Martin could hardly wait, but he politely drank 2 glasses of tea, before following Nikolai to Sheriff. Sheriff asked Martin about his past work and skills. Satisfied, he told him to come the next day and take the job. Martin was overwhelmed with joy. His legs felt weak as he left, hardly believing his luck. As he walked across the yard, he noticed the window of Viktor Petrov's small room. The glass was frosted, so he couldn't see inside, but he could hear voices. What will we do now? A woman's voice asked. I don't know, Viktor Petrov replied. We'll have to beg, I suppose. That's all that's left for us, the woman said bitterly. We work all our lives, and when we get old, we are thrown out like trash. What can we do? Viktor Petrov sighed. Our master doesn't care about us. The real villain is Nikolai, the woman snapped. He wants to make room for his friend. But I won't let him win. I'll tell the master how Nikolai steals hay and lies about everyone. Then he'll see what kind of servant he really is. Don't do that, Viktor Petrov said gently. Why not? It's the truth. He ruined us, and now we have nowhere to go, she sobbed. Martin stood frozen, his joy turning to sorrow. He realized that taking this job meant stealing the old couple's only means of survival. He could not do it. Without hesitation, he turned back to Nikolai's room. Forgot something? Nikolai asked. No, Nikolai Yegorov, Martin said, his voice uncertain. I just came to thank you for your kindness, but I can't take the job. What? Nikolai exploded. Are you making a fool of me? First, you begged me to help you, and now you refuse the job? Do you know how badly you will embarrass me? Martin said nothing. He blushed, lowered his eyes, and simply picked up his cap. Without another word, he left the coachman's room, walked through the yard, and stepped into the cold Moscow streets. Despite the night's chill, he felt warm and light-hearted. He had lost a job, but he had kept his conscience clean.